want to talk with you about a couple things that have come up for me today that God has been speaking in. The first is that I had a conversation with a friend today who was talking about a religious spirit. And as we were talking, I had told her, I want to kind of put this bug in your ear that the word does not talk about religious spirit, and it doesn't talk about Jezebel spirit, and it doesn't talk about Leviathan spirit. It doesn't talk about all of that stuff. And so we don't want to be adding to the scroll in terms of using that language. We want to use the language of the word. Otherwise, we're not going to understand what the word is, what God is saying in the word. We're going to have all of these constructs of the world and all of the connotations that go along with them. And that's problematic. We don't want to do that. And so she graciously received my feedback, was very receptive and everything else. But the way that this came up was because I had shared about this situation that I had in which I had confronted my childhood bishop about things that he was doing, things that he was teaching, things that he believes in the Mormon church, such as Easter and Christmas and Sunday Sabbath and the image, this gigantic statue of so-called Jesus that they have in their visitor center. And the word talks about these things, but the word talks about it in terms of a person having the appearance of godliness, but denying his power. The appearance of godliness, but denying his power, denying the authority of God. And so what I had shared with her had to do with sort of his response, like to everything that I would bring up. He'd be like, well, what does it matter what you call it? If you call it Christmas or you call it something else. And, my questions were, where does God tell you when Jesus' birthday is? Why would you observe Jesus' birthday according to the Gregorian calendar that was set up by the Antichrist Harlot Catholic Church? Why would you be celebrating a holiday, not a holy day, but a holiday, according to the way that the world celebrates? God didn't tell you to do that. He didn't tell you to celebrate Jesus' birthday. So why are you doing it? Why are you calling his Passover Easter? And he had a response for everything, like an immediate response. No contemplation, no self-reflection, no let me check in with the Holy Spirit and see if what you're saying is correct. None of that. It was just immediately justifying and defending. Justifying and defending self. We're supposed to be defending our faith. We're supposed to be defending God. And so I asked at one point, do you have a heart for God, or are you only concerned about defending yourself, about justifying yourself? And the response with regard to Easter, when I asked, why are you calling this Easter? And he said, what does it matter what we call it? What do you mean, what does it matter? And I want to tell you what he was doing. He was denying the authority of God to name his holy day, because what you don't understand when you're calling it Easter is you don't understand the significance of him passing over his people. You don't understand the significance of Jesus extending the covenant on Passover, which represents, if you fulfill that covenant, you being passed over from the destruction that God is going to bring on the wicked. You don't understand that God, when he was calling his people, that he demonstrated exactly what is going to happen, that his people will not be touched, that they will be passed over if they will just obey what he has said to do and who he has said to become. You don't understand that when you're calling it Easter. You don't understand that when you're celebrating a bunny. But what he said was, what does it matter? And what he did in saying that is deny the authority of God and show me what was in his heart. And that is where you are going to be justified. You are either going to have the mark of the beast or you are going to have the seal of God. You are either going to have the spirit of the beast or the spirit of God. You are either going to be a child of God or a child of the devil. It does matter, because what you're saying when you say, what does it matter? Or I'm going to go ahead and make my own rules, is that the authority of God does not matter, that you do not believe in a sovereign God. You believe that you are God, and you can say that you believe in Jesus Christ. You can even be called one who is of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You could be called that, and yet you deny the authority of God. You have the appearance of godliness, but you deny his power. You deny his authority. You deny that you need to become holy as he is holy, not the other way around. I had this crazy experience today, and I know it's probably not going to, it might not sound like a big deal to you guys, but this hit me right in the gut of my spirit. I've been dealing a lot with contractors because, frankly, God could fix this in 2 seconds, but he's crushing me right now. I told you I've been dealing with humidity coming into my house. I also had another repair that I had someone out to take a look at. And I can't tell you how many contractors, God bless you, oh, sister. Seems like everyone I'm working with in business these days, they keep doing that because they hear my voicemail and they hear that I'm only working from a biblical perspective, and they use it as their shtick to try to get the job. And it's sickening and filthy and disgusting. It makes me so sick and so grieved when blessed, how are you doing today? Blessed, right. I know where you're going with this, buddy. They wear it for like a second. For a second. It's just a covering. That's all it is. And that, by the way, 666, that's exactly what it translates into. A covering. You know those suits that like mechanics wear? That's what it is. It's a covering. They wear it for a second. And it's so repulsive to me. Like it infuriates me. I would rather them not say anything and show me who you are rather than use this language that you think is going to entangle me. Because I know it's a lie. I know what this looks like. And I'm standing there talking with him, and he stops for a minute and he says, we were literally talking about the job, and he just stopped in his tracks and said, why do you talk about, why do you have that voicemail? Why do you talk about being a Christian and teaching from a biblical perspective? If you ask me a question, I assume you want the answer, so I start answering him. And he wants to tell me about how he is Jewish and his ex-wife is Christian. So I'm like, okay, I'll talk with him a little bit longer and see, is this his shtick or does he genuinely care? He was not relating to any of the things that I was talking about. I didn't even get a chance to answer his question about my voicemail and why it is that I identify that way. And he started telling me about Israel. And he said, have you ever been? And he's describing it. And he starts telling me about Jerusalem. And he says it's a small town, just like this small town that you live in. It's a small town. And he's describing, I don't even remember everything he said, but it was like, he was describing this. And I've never been to Israel. I don't know anything about the literal land of Jerusalem. But in his description, it just sounded like this tiny little place surrounded by nations, always being attacked, people trying to covet, but just small and humble. Nothing really special about it, except for the Spirit of God is what he said. And I started crying. And I wasn't crying over the land. I think he thought I was crying over the land. He didn't get it. He didn't get it at all, what I was crying over. Because what was being moved in me had to do with God's people. Because God was giving me a different layer that I didn't know anything about. I didn't know what Jerusalem was like, but he was giving me another layer of what he loves and what he's, maybe even trying to preserve in what's going on over there, to keep it low, to keep it from being this super industrialized place where, in the name of civilization, we just destroy everything. He's kept it really lowly. And that was being moved in my spirit. And I didn't start weeping or sobbing. I guess that would have been pretty weird. But my eyes teared up. And he got really uncomfortable. And he did not visit the conversation again. He just went straight to the bid. And by the way, bid way higher than everyone else, of course. Sister, blessed. And then he goes and bids higher. I knew it was going to happen. But you know what? The experience that God wanted me to have in that situation, I had. It really moved me. I hope that you can hear what I'm trying to say about discernment and about what it actually looks like to be in him. Don't wear that covering. Don't profane the name of God. I'll tell you one more. Someone I had considered working with recently doing the same pitch. Blessed. Oh, we went to, such and such place and we're planting a church, and that was a warning sign to me. Sister closes up with sister every time we talk. It just has gotten so detestable to me. I sent them a video so that they could understand what I do. I wanted to test to see if they were really if they really are Christian. And they either listened to it and didn't like the message, couldn't hear the message, or they didn't even bother, because it was a very deep message. And quite frankly, if you have a heart for God and you disagree with it, you don't think that it's correct, you'll have a conversation. You'll test the Spirit. You'll pray about the message. You'll respond in some way. But see, this is what we're living in right now. I don't want you to be mistaken. When you hear people using that language and wearing that covering, but denying the authority of God, denying the power of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying his power, denying his authority, denying his sovereignty, denying that he makes the rules, not us. There are so many liars calling themselves Christian, calling themselves religious, and they're lying. They're just trying to get something. The word says, discern the fruit and test the Spirit. Not everyone is from God. And in fact, the word also says, most are not. I want to tell you something else that I've been learning in this process, and it's a very difficult process of trying to hire contractors because, wow, I just can't even wrap my head around how dishonest and sickening they are. I had a really good electrician. I'm so grateful for that. But in general, it's just been a really disgusting and grievous experience. And I finally have surrendered today. I mean, I sat down and I hung up on a contractor this morning because he kept swearing on the phone with me. And I just thought, you know what? I'm over this. No, I'm not going to let you bring that in my house. So I sat down and I was like, all right, I'm back to square one, but I know what you're doing right now, Lord. Like, you're bringing me down because I need these things done, but it's not going to get done. It is not going to get done if you don't want it to get done. So I better just sit down and learn this lesson. So I sat down and I started journaling. And one of the things that came out from me is that God has taught me how to discern the fruit and test the Spirit. And I'm very good at it, actually. And I shouldn't really give myself credit. I have been very good at being able to do that by the Holy Spirit. But when it comes to situations like this, where I need something and I start to feel this like feeling of desperation, or like I don't know how to explain, just that there's something that I need done. I don't step back enough, and that's what he's teaching me. You need to step all the way back and stop trying to convince yourself that this person is going to do the job right, or that they have competence, or, whatever. You need to step back. Let them prove themselves. Don't be so desperate, because your desperation leads you to idolatry, and then you betray yourself every time. And that's 100% correct. Here's the truth, because a lot of times, like I remember in psychology that they would pathologize people and diagnose them with borderline personality disorder or whatever, and they would say, if you saw people as being that these people just see people as either being all good or all bad. Well, the truth is, you either have the Spirit of God or you have the spirit of Satan. The word doesn't say to try to find out someone's character pathology or diagnosis. The word does say that we were evil and now we're good. And this is something that tripped me up my whole life, because people, I would see these different aspects of my dad and I would think, he's good. And then when he would do something bad, I needed to stay with that narrative. And so I would try to prove that he was good and that he would take care of me and try to convince myself of that. And I was constantly being disappointed and really more than disappointed, devastated, because this was a man who was only out for his own gain. And so God is recreating that in this situation with these contractors. It's the same situation. They either have the Spirit of God or they don't. They're either good or they're bad. That's what the word says. But you see what happens in the field of mental health when they say when they rewrite the narrative, or when philosophers are wise in their own eyes, making up their own theories, deviating from the word and saying, no, don't look over there, look over here. I have wisdom. I'll tell you how things are. What a farce. Do you know how many situations I would have saved myself from if I just knew what was written in the word? Test the Spirit. Not everyone's from God, especially of those saying that they're from God. Wickedness has blossomed, and these are truths that we need to be living by if we're going to get through this world. We're not going to worry about these things in eternity, but right now we need to be as shrewd as vipers and as innocent as doves, not giving our pearls to swine and not being deceived by our own fears. God has every ability. I'm looking at this list of contractors that I've had come by and, I'm talking with them and then God shows me something funky with them. I'm just so tired of it. There have been so many. And then thinking about contractors I've hired who have not done the job correctly or who have lied and overcharged me and all the things, the games that they play. And I think about that. And if I conform to the world or I conform to the devil trying to tempt my flesh into thinking that I need to control it or I need to just make a unilateral decision, then that's the spirit I'll be handed over to. But today, as I'm sitting here, thank God he knows what's good. Thank God he does, because I'm brought to this position of looking at this situation and going, you know what? I'm tired of feeling desperate. It's not helping me. I'm tired of trying to figure this out on my own. It's just silly. You're the only one who can send someone good. And you don't bring grief on me willingly. There's something you want me to learn in this situation. So I'm going to sit down and learn it. I just wanted to share that with you in real time because I think we all suffer from this. In one way or another, we suffer from it. I think that those of us who are in him are grieving the things that are being done in Jerusalem right now, in spiritual Jerusalem. We're grieving that people wear Christ or their delusion of Christ as a covering and don't even realize that what they're wearing is the Antichrist, having the appearance of godliness, but denying God's power and sovereignty. They don't even use just scales. They take advantage of the widows and the fatherless. They have no scruples and no sense, and we need not have anything to do with them. And then we turn to God. I mean, we can't white knuckle it and just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. We need to turn to God and be built in all things. And that's what I'm doing right now, is turning to him and trusting him and examining myself. Why is it that I'm in these situations? What am I feeling right now? I'm feeling desperation. Desperation is not it's not a good place to start making decisions. I need to get a hold of myself first, and I need to work my heart into trusting God and knowing that he will send someone when I have done the work that I need to do. And I'm going to know. I'm going to have peace, and I will know that the person he has sent is the correct person for me to work with. But look, it's not about the contractor. It's not about any of these things. It's about me being built as his child. It's about me acknowledging the sovereignty and power of God over all circumstances in my life. And that at all times, he is building me. There's never a situation where he's not building me. This is not a situation of flesh and blood. This is a situation that God has sent in my life for me to learn. Please discern this message with God.